welcome all to the Snail Trail 4x4 Off-Road Podcast. If you like going off-roading in Toyotas, wrenching on Toyotas, camping in Toyotas, and maybe poking a little bit of fun at Toyotas, and of course, hearing about how awesome GPS Lowrances are in Toyotas, then this is the podcast for you. Welcome, everybody. I am Jimmy Jett, and we are happy to have you here on episode 474. I know it's crazy. We're already almost up to 500, which is wild, but I do think we're going to do something fun for 500. We'll give more information about that here in the future, but there's a little sneak peek for you guys. Tyler and I had a lot of fun down at King of the Hammers this year. I did come home earlier than him, but while he was down there, he did get a special interview for you guys, and we're going to play that later in a wee little bit. But before we do, I have some housekeeping to cover, just so you guys are all kept up to date on everything that is happening. First and foremost, we will cover FNGs and birthdays and reviews and items like that on Thursday's episode. We're probably going to have a mass catch up of, some what the hell Tyler's been doing down at King of the Hammers to all the voicemails. We'll see how that goes. We might have to do a special voicemail episode entirely. So who knows? We'll see what happens. But this month's giveaway is from Coyote Beadlocks, which is a really cool inner beadlock system. I run inner beadlocks on Bobcat, and what's fantastic about inner beadlocks is that they are not only one beadlock on the outside, but it's also the inside of the wheels beadlocked up as well. So it's an inner and outer beadlock system, which really means you can lower the pressure down even further, and you don't have to worry about popping that inner bead like normal conventional beadlock wheels. It also doesn't have any bolts involved, so you don't have to worry about torquing them because it's all inside. Once you set it up and you're ready to run, that's all it takes. I just monitor the air pressure every once in a while whenever I'm airing up and airing down and making sure everything's great. It's a fantastic giveaway. I don't recall off the top of my head how much the pricing is, but they're a few $100 each, and we are giving those away for you guys. So you're going to get a set of 4 17-inch rims up to 10-inch wide rim, and you just set it up. It's not terribly difficult, but it is a little bit labor intensive, but once you're set up, you're good to go, and you never have to adjust it ever again, which is really rad. I did hint on reviews a little earlier, but we are always accepting reviews on Apple iTunes or Apple Podcasts or whatever they're calling it these days. Once we get to 750 reviews, we're giving away a set of Yokohama tires. Any tire you want from that is DOT approved and not a sticky compound, then it has to be less than a 20-inch rim. Super stoked for that. So once we get to 750 reviews, we're giving away those set of tires. Every 50 reviews up to 750, we're giving away swag pack. We're coming up close on 600 reviews, so we're going to be giving away swag pack there. One for 650, one for 700, and then 750 are those tires. There's a lot of information that happens in this episode. They get very nerdy in here. I had to listen to it a few times just to kind of understand what the hell they were talking about. So if you guys have any questions on this episode, feel free to call in. Our phone number is area code 916-345-4744. And we'll either get Steven back on the line, or we will try to have Tyler explain it one way or the other. But now I think it is time for us to jump over to the episode with Steven and Tyler. They're going to get all nerdy on radios. They talk a little bit about Nissans, and they really dive in deep on the Lowrance system and how that affected the King of the Hammers this year and everything that they had going. So why don't I let him tell you about it instead of me talking? So let's jump over to the interview with Tyler and Steven Lutz.
Are you tired of landing in potholes and bouncing off obstacles? To play at your full potential, correctly tuned coilovers allow you to float over the rocks and gain more traction. At 4-Wheel Underground, our full suspension systems include custom-tuned coilovers for your specific application. To learn more, visit 4wheelunderground.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentle ladies, to today's main topic. We kind of got a fun little campfire chat here with Stephen Lutz. We are here on the lake bed, hanging out in the Lance with the race course right out our window. So we kind of get to watch and commentate as cars come by. They're on their third lap. Most of them are starting their third. The leaders are starting the third laps and just went by us about 5-10 minutes ago. But it's been a crazy week out here.
It has been absolutely crazy.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. Very busy in a lot of directions, but there's a lot of good stuff happening out here right now.
Yeah, it's I didn't realize the big changes that were kind of happening until just yesterday when I saw rugged routes on the tracking screen in the King of the Hammers app, and I was like, oh, I know that guy.
Yep.
And there was some issues going on with it. And I was like, I'm going to give him a call. See what's going on. See if it's a solvable issue or if we're just kind of like, it's nope, we're just kind of screwed this year. We're trying something out. But yeah, man, you do a lot of really cool stuff. So you do rugged routes, which we'll get into, rugged rocks, which is the Nissan stuff, right?
Yep.
What other kind of stuff are you involved with?
I guess the only other thing that I've tried to keep out of the business, but is inevitably converging with everything else is radio stuff.
Radio stuff, yeah.
And somehow, I mean, we've got some great companies in the industry that know radio really well, but for some reason, we still have a lot of problems with just people not being able to communicate. So, you know, I've started to publish a little bit of content here and there on YouTube and some newsletters and stuff, just trying to educate people on how to properly set up radio.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of black magic
to
a lot of people.
Yeah.
If you don't understand radio, you're never going to get it set up right.
Yes.
You know, I think a lot of people just open the box and slap the stuff in their car and they expect to talk around the world. And it doesn't quite work that way.
No.
But with a little bit of knowledge, you can really hone in on what potential problems you're having in your car and drastically increase your ability to communicate. So
100%. That's you and I could go on start a whole nother podcast really about radio stuff.
Yeah.
I don't remember where we first got connected, but something came up about radios, and then whatever we were talking about quickly went to radios for like the next 2 hours or whatever it was.
That happened. Yeah. I was like, shoot, I hung up my cell phone that day. I was like, how long was that call? And like, man, I think we just time traveled or something.
Yeah, seriously. So most of the stuff that you all do revolves around the racing world.
A lot of it does, but that's not where it started. You know, it was all very recreational, and then things have just kind of migrated here. I didn't have the intention of ending up doing racing stuff. It was just kind of expanding the Lowrance ecosystem, really, or lack thereof, right? Because these GPSs, although they've been used for navigation for a really long time for desert racing, they're not being utilized to their full capacity by any means.
Gotcha. Okay.
So as I've gotten more involved with it over the years, granted, it started with making maps almost 10 years ago now.
Okay.
So the whole mapping thing kind of took off in the recreational space. A lot of guys that were familiar with Lowrance, either from fishing or knowing that they use them in race cars, they acquire a GPS and they're like, oh man, the mapping out of the box really sucks.
Yep.
Look for a better solution and boom, they find me. So that's really what started it. You know, just building maps on a reliable platform for wheeling. You know, I just, come up to Big Bear or wherever else. I just want to go play and not get lost.
Yeah, seriously.
You know? Or if I do get lost, at least know how to get home at the end of the day.
Yeah. So how do I get back?
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I think there's a lot of really neat off-road companies in this industry that have been born because of people being passionate about their recreational off-roading and wheeling.
Yep.
And they're like, this is a massive pain point.
Yep.
And nobody's fixing it. Nobody's solving it. And I'm interested in this kind of stuff. So I'm going to fucking solve it.
That's exactly how it started.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yep.
So yeah, I think there's a lot of really cool industries, a lot of cool markets within the off-road industry that have stemmed and just grown because of that mentality.
Yep.
So let's start back at your recreational wheeling stuff. You have a Pathfinder.
Yeah. That Pathfinder, my parents bought it when I was 5 years old.
No shit.
Yeah.
You've had it that long. That's cool.
It's how I got to preschool. And it was the family commuter. And then when I got into high school.
Just like that back when you were 5'2", going to get dropped off it.
Yeah. So it was bone stock, 2-wheel drive. Pathfinder. And then it became mine when I started driving. It was just the hand-me-down first car, finally needed a way to get around and ended up with a Pathfinder, but I love that thing.
Yeah. It's set up really well right now. What all do you have done to it now?
So now, we did a number of years ago, we were doing solid axle swaps on Nissans.
Okay.
I still get the parts, but not doing full builds anymore.
Okay.
But it's using a diamond axle up front, but it uses the Nissan third member in the center and Dana 60 outers.
Okay.
So it's pretty unique, but a handful of people have adopted it in the Nissan world.
How big is that third member?
About 9.25 inch.
9.25. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it out of like a what vehicle? Is it any particular vehicle, or are they kind of like Toyotas, where like a Toyota 8-inch is a bunch of different vehicles? Or
they use them in a lot of them. So it's called an H233B.
Okay.
And they used them starting in the late 80s here in the States until 2004.
Okay.
So it was pretty good range there. And then overseas, they use them in the patrols a lot.
Gotcha.
So from also late 80s into 2018, something like that overseas, they ran them for a really long time.
Wow, almost 40 years worth of these third members. Jeez.
Absolutely wild. And it's a great axle.
Uh-huh.
But here in the States, there's only the low pinion ones. So,
Gotcha.
just rears. But it didn't stop me. I just run a low pinion up front.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, on that axle, the pinion is really close to center line.
Okay.
So even if you go high pinion, you're really not gaining that much.
Yeah.
So it's
like
worked out well.
That's like the Tundra 10.5s. They're a centered pinion third member. So you're still driving on the coast side in the front.
Yep.
But your pinion is up out of the way.
It's very high.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how these are. So it's kind of funny. You watch a guy that, puts a Dana 44 in, swaps it in, and you realize how low the pinion is. And you put it next to my truck. I'm like, man, I've got so much more room under there.
Yeah.
So, and plus just having the fabricated housing from Diamond, you're saving ground clearance there.
Yeah.
So it's a really robust setup. So we 3-link that, 14-inch travel coilovers up front with an ARB and 557 gears in the diffs. And then the rear's 4-link and 12-inch coilovers, but they're inboarded, so they're on the inside of the frame.
Yep.
So it just works. It's got gobs of suspension. I really should put a sway bar on it, but I've been riding that anti-sway bar train for almost 2 decades. So
yeah, it's a trailer queen though, right? Or are you driving it around on the street still?
Yeah. No, nice. I'll drive it. Yeah. Okay. I'll take it, grocery store or fishing or, well, I don't really fish, but so that doesn't happen. But, but no, I drive it wherever. We'll take it on road trips. A few years ago, me and my girlfriend, we went through Arizona and saw the Grand Canyon, everything. We camped out of it the whole time.
Nice.
Up Arizona Strip, north side of the Grand Canyon. Popped in.
Where's your fuel tank?
It's in the very back.
Inside or underneath it?
No, it's underneath. So stock location is behind the rear axle.
No shit.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So doing a 4-link is like
that's no
easy.
problem then. Fuck.
Yeah, you just move the exhaust and you're good.
Jeez, okay.
It's like the ideal platform for doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's super nice because the 4Runner has the gas tank right there on your passenger side.
Yeah, like a lot of pickups have it right on the side. Yeah, we don't have to deal with it.
You can't do the 4-link or you put your gas tank inside or something. So
yeah, you don't have to deal with it on the Pathfinder.
That's nice.
It makes it really easy.
Okay.
So then there's an Atlas in it. So 5-to-1 Atlas behind the Nissan manual trans. And the engine's been swapped to a 3.3 from the 3.0.
Okay.
There's a lot of miles. There's about 460,000 miles on that chassis.
Wow.
So
that's a lot.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah.
Nice.
It's up there, but it's been a great truck and it's taken me a lot of really cool places. I've done a lot of really cool things with it and it just keeps going.
Yeah.
So I keep an eye out for opportunities to build more Nissan stuff, but I feel like a lot of it's been kind of done
now.
So,
yeah.
I still
you got to use that to really the Pathfinder was the kind of the platform and launch pad for rugged rocks, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So started out really I just wanted 4-wheel drive so I can go snowboarding.
That was it.
That's really how it started.
And your 2-wheel drive Pathfinder, you're like, how do we do this?
Yep, exactly. I didn't want to get rid of it. I found a donor that was local, ripped the drivetrain out of it, welded in a couple brackets, and I was like, hey, it's good. And ran an IFS 4-wheel drive for a little while. But then after, we were actually not far from here. North Anderson Dry Lake up here, like top of Camp Rock Road.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we're camping up there for Thanksgiving years ago. I grew up camping and riding dirt bikes and stuff out here. So we were out there and my dad's friend, Rick, he had a old CJ5, like this baby blue Jeep, and I don't exactly know what was all done to it, but it was geared really low.
Okay.
I'd never been in it before, never been rock crawling, never done the 4-wheel drive thing. And my dad, he's like, he got the keys and he's like, hey, I'm going to take my son for a rip around the desert. We're going to climb some stuff. I'm like, what do you mean?
We're gonna climb some stuff.
Yeah. And so we pointed at this hill and we just start chugging up this hill. I'm like, Dad, there's no way we're going to go up this. And
we got a couple race car drivers hiking back into town here past the camper.
Oh man.
Without a car.
Yeah. Man, we're going to probably see him hightailing it back with the drive shaft over their shoulders or something.
Or gas cans just tied to their back. Yeah. That's funny. All right. So you head back up. You see this hill to point up the hill and you're just going for it.
Yeah. And we're just crawling, it's just in first gear. He lets out the clutch and it's doing its thing. And I'm sitting here thinking like, there's no way.
What
we're gonna climb?
Way.
Exactly. Yep.
I've said that a couple times this week now. I'm watching people out at Chocolate Thunder, some of the race cars doing stuff. I'm just like, what? No way.
Yep.
So yeah,
I know. I say it all the time now too, and I'm like, dang it, I did it again.
Know, right.
But yeah, we made it to the top, and I was just like, holy crap! Like that's kind of where it all like clicked.
Okay,
it was like you can drive up stuff like
you can do this. Yeah.
This is real.
Yeah,
and then my 4-wheel drive converted Pathfinder just. Well, I don't know if it was all uphill or all downhill from there. It depends on your perspective.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I jumped on some forums and got really involved with a Pathfinder forum.
Okay.
Nissan Pathfinder Offroad Association. They're still around. Things have changed there a lot, as with many forums these days. But got on there and realized that there was a lot of people looking for parts that simply didn't exist or were hard to find.
Okay.
Or they would go to their local 4-wheel drive shop and be told that what they were looking for didn't exist when it did. They just didn't know about it.
The correct part numbers to get and what to ask for.
Yep, exactly. Okay. So then that's when I started the company and just started trying to centralize a lot of that just so it was easier to get the stuff.
Yeah.
And then as we found gaps in the market, I would approach different manufacturers and be like, hey, we want to build these. Like, what do we need to do?
Yeah.
It wasn't like, hey, I need this. Are you willing to do it? It was more like,
we're going to
do it. What's the magic number?
Yeah.
And let me see if I can figure it out.
Exactly.
And so we've done that over and over and over again over the years. So
that's cool.
I've done a lot of really cool stuff in that space.
Yeah.
So we'll see where the future holds in the Nissan world. Things seem to be tapering off.
Yeah. Nissan seems to be kind of getting, they revamped the Frontier recently.
It's a nice truck.
It's a nice truck. I don't think they're really focusing on outdoor recreation at all though, as a market.
Yeah. Which is interesting because they did kind of jump into like, overlanding type stuff, like straight from Nissan a while back. Like all these accessories and rooftop tents and, all sorts of stuff.
Interesting.
Yep. And they still have a lot of it, but there's definitely a shift in their focus. Like you can just feel it.
Yeah.
Things are different.
Yeah.
I've tried bringing a couple products to the market, worked with ARB on the new front locker and brought that in, and there's like no one's interested.
Interesting.
And there's a lot of those trucks in like the forums or the Facebook groups, like very active.
Yeah.
But it seems like there's just not a lot of follow through with people actually wanting to do stuff with those trucks.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. And you would think, well, there's been different opinions over the years in the aftermarket world. It's like, well, some people wait until they're way out of warranty and they've had the truck for a handful of years and then they put money into it. But then there's the other side of it. You see it with a lot of Jeep and Toyota people. They buy a brand new rig and they build it straight out of the gate and they go use it no matter what. And it's kind of gone back and forth over the years with Nissan people. And right now I think either people are just simply not interested or they're waiting till the warranty and all that stuff is up so they don't have to deal with, warranty.
The headache stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So time will tell, but
yeah,
I'll keep my ear to the ground. And if something pops up where people want things built, then I'll see if I can figure it happen.
Yeah. Nice. So that's the kind of the Nissan stuff and how you got yourself started in the business, like being an entrepreneur and getting into business stuff.
Yep.
And then from there, how'd you get into Lowrance stuff? Because that gets into rugged routes and what you do with the mapping stuff.
Yep. So I had heard through the grapevine that the desert racers were using Lowrance, and I was like, well, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me, right?
Yeah.
I got to get one. I got one, and I was like, okay, does what it's supposed to do from a tracking perspective. I knew it was a good piece of hardware, but there was no background mapping in it. I was like, what am I missing here? And then started digging deeper and realized that there weren't really any good maps. So it was good timing, really, is what it comes down to. Is I called Lowrance. I told them what I wanted to do. Had to get forwarded through probably every department in the company before I got a hold of the right guy. They're like, oddly enough, our department is going to be testing some new stuff, and if you're pretty tech savvy, then we can use you. And I've been doing computer stuff since I was like 5.
Okay.
And I was soldering stuff when I was probably 5. I just been an electronics and computer nerd from day one.
Yeah.
So I got in touch with them, and they kind of showed me the ropes and taught me a bunch of stuff on how to build maps. So I built some for myself, and then when I realized the result was desirable, like when I loaded up my first map, I was just like,
that's pretty cool.
Staring at it, like people are gonna want this.
Yeah.
And that was like 10 years ago now.
Okay.
So then after I did that, I spun up another website, and within a couple of weeks, without advertising or anything, just being able to be found on the internet, people were finding me, and I started making sales pretty quick.
Yeah.
So then it's turned into like, well, what else can we do with these things? And as time has gone on, my relationship with Lowrance has gotten better and been introduced to more people in the company and different departments. So now starting to branch out into expanding functionality with additional accessories, because they do a lot of really cool stuff that a lot of people just don't know about.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because I know nothing about Lowrances. My experience with mapping stuff is Onyx, Gaia, Garmin, any of those things. So like every time I've seen a Lowrance in the past, it's just this big thick brick with a monochrome screen that just has not really any features on it, just a line and an arrow for where you are. And then a couple of things here and there that says you can a button over here to zoom in and out, but like, I don't know what the other buttons did on it or anything. And I was like, I can't freaking use this. I got a nice, why can't I just use Onyx on my phone and have this great colorful UI that shows me all these different features of everything around me. So I've never gotten into Lowrances.
Okay.
I know nothing about the ecosystem of them. I know nothing about their capabilities. Like, I just think of them as it's just a way to drop breadcrumbs while you're driving around somewhere.
Okay.
So go into it. Give me what is the pitch about Lowrances? What are they, man?
Yeah. So basically everything with Lowrance is offline.
Okay.
So my maps are on SD cards. You don't download anything. There's no subscription. There's none of that.
Lauren Healy lost the back of his car there. that top back half that makes it look like a Bronco is no longer on the car. So.
Yeah, it's all cage.
Yeah.
I wonder where it is.
I don't know. But man. So it's all offline stuff. That's the whole theory behind Lowrance's.
Yep. Okay. I have a hard time going down the path of another subscription.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So that's like a part of it. The hardware is built in a robust way to be outside. Right. So Lowrance's main focus is really in the marine industry.
Okay.
And they understand that you need a screen that you can see in the daylight. You need something that can take shock and vibration.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more you can do, and we'll get into all the more stuff.
Okay.
But even like with the monochrome screen, they're all full color screens now.
Okay,
they have been for a long time.
Okay, good.
But you probably haven't realized it, because a lot of these guys that are racing, they don't run my maps. And it's it depends on who you talk to in the world of competition, of if they want the satellite overlay as a background or not.
Okay.
For pre-running, I think a lot of guys really like it, but then in the race, it's kind of hit and miss. Okay. But like, even if I go wheeling, like locally here in Big Bear or whatever, I pop my Big Bear map in, and I have everything color coded in there. Okay. And, it's not like you run out of data or storage space on the Lowrance and then have to wipe it out and make more room or anything like that. I keep my maps on different SD cards in like a Pelican case, and I throw it in the glove box. Yeah. So depending on where I'm going, I just swap the chip. That
SD card out. Okay.
Yep. I don't have to do all the homework, right? Like, like with different apps and things, a lot of times, I don't spend a lot of time on the apps, but if you know where you're going to go, you've got to kind of outline it and download things ahead of time. And there's a lot of planning involved.
Yeah. Yep.
So as things are moving forward with the Lowrance thing, the idea is to just not have to do the homework.
Okay.
Just buy the chip and then you just add it to your little library of chips for different areas and you just swap it and go.
Yeah.
So it's simple from that perspective. I could run you through so many things that they do, but man, I don't even really know where to start. I mean, I'm working on some really cool stuff, but I think most importantly,
so the concept behind, I think, why a lot of people use Lowrance and go with Lowrance is just the robust of the hardware, right? And how it's designed and all put together.
It's more purpose built for outdoors.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Whereas like if you put an iPad in your car to run Onyx or something, then that's not as built for racing and withstanding the abuse of being in a 10-hour car wreck all day long kind of thing. Okay.
And heat becomes a big problem with the iPads and stuff too.
That's true. Yeah. Right? Being in the sunlight all day.
Yep. So I've heard about problems where people be in the race and the cable, like the power cable will come out and they don't realize it until the battery dies.
Oh no.
And now you're sitting there in the middle of a race course with a dead GPS. It's like, well, that doesn't work very well. The other thing is the heat though. It gets up a certain temperature and just like a lot of phones, right? They're working constantly using the GPS and updating all that. It takes a lot of power and they get really hot.
Screen
and especially
power too.
Especially in the sun. And, race cars get hot, even, all the heat from the engine just blowing in and they just shut down. Yeah. It automatically closes the app or whatever, or shuts down. It's like, it's too hot. You're done. And that doesn't fly for competition use. So the Lowrances, they've proven to be very reliable, especially with the heat scenario. Okay. The power cable is like a waterproof locking plug on the back that's hardwired in. So it's not like a USB cable that can just slide out. Yeah. So it's just a totally different ball game. Okay. Really.
That makes sense. So with them having this really robust platform, are they, you say that they're being very good about working with you on developing stuff for a Lowrance ecosystem. Are they really trying to build kind of an ecosystem of accessories and stuff? Or is that something that you kind of went to them about and were like, hey, I have this idea. You have your hardware capabilities can handle it. What do you guys think about it?
So when they built their hardware, they built it with the ability to expand in the marine market with all sorts of accessories already. Oh, okay. So at this point, it's more of me going to them and saying, I want to do XYZ. Let's evaluate the different ways we can interface with your unit. Okay. And like there's the NEMA 2000, which is the plug that goes to like the puck that you'll see on the top of a lot of cars. But it's inside of there is basically CAN bus. Okay. And there's a marine standard that rides on top of that CAN bus that allows you to tap in all sorts of additional stuff. Okay. So like one of the things that I've got is like a belt temp sensor for the UTVs.
For side by side. Okay. Yeah. Golf carts.
Yep. Yeah. When they drive aggressively, those belts, they heat up like crazy and then you'll pop a belt. Although the newer cars are getting better about that. For a while, a handful of years, it was really bad on a lot of the Polarises and the Can-Ams. Yeah. They were just breaking belts all over the place. So I have an infrared belt temp sensor that constantly monitors and then reports it on CAN bus, and it shows the overlay right on the screen.
On your Lowrance?
On the Lowrance.
Nice. Okay.
So that's pretty cool. Digital switching is something that Lowrance has available. So you just like an S-Pod or a Switch Pros or whatever else, instead of having a separate panel of switches, you can have a little panel on the side of the screen that pops out and you can turn things on and off and hide it again.
Okay. That's pretty badass. I didn't realize they did that.
Yeah. So, so they've done it for the marine industry and I got my hands on one. I've got one in my UTV right now, but their configuration software, all the icons are marine focused. So it's like, anchor winch up. Like the live well pump, right? But it's all 12-volt accessories. So I touched base with them and I was like, hey, I want to use this in the off-road world. But we need to tweak the configuration software. Yeah. So it's really not complicated to do, but I got all the new icons made up and stuff. So nice. I'm working on releasing some software. So now we can just bring that in the off-road world.
For light bars and lockers and all sorts of different, whatever 12-volt accessory you want to run, whatever that you want to switch it. Yeah.
Yep. And the amount of power that you can run through this box that they have.
Yeah. What's your amp draws?
Up to 200 amps.
What?
Yeah. Very robust.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I think your average S-Pod or Switch Pro, you're limited to 10 to 15 amps per circuit per switch.
Yeah. So this one, I believe, if I'm remembering right, it does at least 30 amps per. Yeah, I forgot exactly how it breaks down.
Okay.
But I know it'll do overall, you can pull 200 amps through it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of power.
That's impressive.
So,
jeez.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Then what else? I mean, there's so much. They're built, like boats on the water right now. They already keep track of each other's location.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's AIS is like their system that they use. And in ham radio, like we've messed with like APRS, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So a long time ago, I did hook up an APRS modem to a Lowrance, and I used it for APRS for a while.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah.
So, but there's different ways to interface it. So with the APRS modem, it would just create a waypoint when you receive somebody's location, which worked. But then you start getting all of these waypoints listed in there, and there's no differentiation between the things that you marked and the icons that were just received through the radio.
Gotcha.
So with the Lowrance, there's another way to do it, again, through the NEMA 2000 / CAN bus, and you can send location data to the Lowrance where it'll actually register as a vessel.
Something different, yeah.
Yeah, it'll show it's actually a vehicle. So, or, just, it's not just a waypoint. It's actually something that's out there moving around.
It's an actual entity of some sort rather than a node of a waypoint or something. Okay.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So going to be digging a lot more into that, which is kind of what then got me involved with the whole tracking with the map. And now everything's really snowballing in that direction. Yeah. But it's all really cool stuff, and it's all really good stuff. The root of all this, from my perspective, has been very much recreational wheeling.
Okay.
And just wanting to go have fun.
Go have fun and do it in a safe way, be able to get back home at the end of the day kind of thing.
Yep, exactly. But above all else, I like to solve problems.
Yeah.
So regardless if it's racing or wheeling or whatever else, like if there's a problem that I can solve and it gets my brain moving, and I'm like, hey, I think I could do this.
So do people just start calling you Vanilla Ice of Ultra 4 or the racing world now?
Well, I've got a couple friends.
You'll solve it.
I've got a couple friends that call me the deproblemizer. Yeah.
That's funny.
So that's pretty funny. But yeah, so here we are, now you mentioned the live map. And been talking with Dave Cole and some other guys.
Because that's pretty cool. That's new this year. The tracking system for King of the Hammers in previous years has just kind of been a map layout, topographic map layout of Johnson Valley. That has the race course on it. With race mile marker points listed on it too. And then it had a little square with a number traveling along the race course. So you could see 100, 200 of these squares traveling around the race course throughout the day. Click on the square and see who the driver was. Now what's up on the website as KOH's tracking system is a really cool user interface that has a similar layout. It's got kind of a topographic map, the race course laid out on it, but now there's some extra icons around that you can click on and pull up live video feeds.
Yes. So it was really part of Dave Cole's vision. And I had actually reached out to Dave about a year and a half ago and be like, hey, I see all these things you're trying to do, and I think I can help solve problems. Right.
Okay.
And so I came up and I talked to him and kind of brain dumped a bunch of ideas and went home, and we didn't really talk for a little while, but then a few months ago he reached back out and he was like, hey, I want to show you what we've been working on.
Okay.
And, I
based on these discussions,
loop you back in, because he's had his own ideas and then some other guys that he's been in touch with. And so it's been kind of this culmination of a lot of ideas that have not just started coming to fruition based on our original conversation, but other people's input and hardware and everything that got us to where we are right here, right now. Yeah. With being able to do the video streaming and stuff. So Starstream, they're doing all the in-car stuff. This year, like Rally Safe is still running the trackers, but we're kind of sitting in the middle of all that.
Yeah.
And actually
all the
pulling
data,
the data
from all the different things are coming into you.
Yep.
And then you're processing that data and putting it into a graphical user interface for people to interact with that data.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So not only do we have the in-car cameras on there, but we've got the drones and the stick cameras from the production crew that are linking straight back to the URL on YouTube for that specific camera feed.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got the in-car stuff, we got that production, and then I feel like the interface is just a lot cleaner now too, with the way things are clustered together. Huge shout out to my friends that helped me do this, because it was like we'd been talking about building something like this for well over a year, and kind of looped them in on what was going on with meeting with Dave and some of the other guys that had been in these meetings for the last few months. And it was just, it came down to the wire where we wanted something working for this year's King of the Hammers, but we only had a couple weeks to do it.
Yeah, you only had, just, you like, said 14 days, something like that, to put all of this shit together.
We literally,
it's so crazy.
Yeah, well, we really wanted to start working on it after this year and build something bigger and have more time to build what we really wanted to build. But there was, for multiple different reasons, other people weren't able to kind of check all the boxes. Yeah, and so I think we were just kind of the last ones.
Dave was like, hey, I got a problem. Can you solve this?
It was like last man standing, you know, it's just like, okay, well, we've only got a couple weeks. And I just had this big, like I get kind of just gasp for air / sigh / something. And I was like, let me make a phone call.
Yeah,
I'll call you back.
Yeah.
So
no, it's definitely, it's super cool. Like, I know that there's a lot of people on the lake bed that are really frustrated with the tracking this year.
Yeah.
But now that we understand that the tracking system has only been, it's gone from idea to a using system in 14 days.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah. Well, but that's just us, right? Like the trackers themselves is something different.
Yes.
And I don't think Rally Safe has been used at King of the Hammers before.
Okay.
So I think there was a lot of things that had to be implemented outside of just us doing it.
Yeah.
Like there's a chain of different people and entities that were involved in trying to get tracking together this year.
Yep. Yeah, you're the in between. So like, if the data you're getting is bad,
then it's bad.
There's nothing you can do about it.
I mean,
it's
computers are all shit in, shit out, right? Like if
exactly.
I
know the big
tricky
issue we had during EMC day was that Rally Safe decided to use different trackers and didn't tell you.
Well,
and so they changed up where their data was going to and didn't necessarily tell you. And
so I don't even know if they actually changed the trackers. I just know in the system that we're pulling data from, that endpoint where we're grabbing data switched yesterday.
Yeah.
And we didn't know.
And nobody told you. Yeah.
No. So. And then I was just like, what the heck?
Yeah.
So we got online and started poking around.
Fixed it on the fly.
Yep. And then, most of the problems, I mean, once we clicked it over, it's like, basically running as a different event.
Yeah.
So the way Rally Safe set up all of King of the Hammers in their system this year is all the last like week plus of racing was set up as one event. And then each race has been set up as a stage.
A stage of that race, essentially, of that event.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
So we were supposed to be running all of the tracking through one event ID number. Well, yesterday somehow it spawned a second ID number.
Yeah.
And
I think they figured out that one race for how many races are out here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5.
So 2 desert, plus.
Do they do King of the Motos too, or?
So they ran that through Yellow Brick.
Okay.
The different tracking system on there.
So now we've got multiple tracking systems out here too.
Yes.
So yeah, you have another thing in the brick in the mix, pun intended.
Yeah, and so it's really just a matter of trying to find the best solution for what we have in the time frame to do it now, and really trying to move these visions forward. Like I know it's not perfect this year, but it's still something
that's the concept and the idea. When you look at it, the concept and idea, you can say like, oh, once this kind of gets streamlined and the bugs get worked out, and we have longer than 14 days to work on it.
Yeah.
It's going to be really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And trying to look at the whole tracking and spectating thing from a new off-roader's perspective, and saying, okay, if I show up to an off-road race, I show up to King of the Hammers and I know nothing.
Yeah.
How do I
understand the concept of what this thing is?
What's going on?
Yeah.
Right. So as things move forward, what we really want to do is bring in more information and structure it in a way where you can understand the different classes better and understand so many different aspects.
Yeah.
That are like right now you kind of have to go digging for information.
Yeah.
Right. On what are the different classes? What are the different limitations? And all the information's out there.
Yeah.
It's
but
just
it's in a
not
bunch of different places.
Exactly.
Kind of like Rugged Rocks was with the Nissan stuff. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. So yeah, just trying to bring it all together and tie it into a map and have a good spectator experience and get them closer to racing.
Yeah.
Like my friend Chris, he told me something recently. He was like, the best way to spectate an off-road race is to be in one.
Be a part of the race.
To be in the race.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, yeah,
like,
fair.
It's like how, because you just cover so much land. There's so much going on.
Yep.
And it's
that's
tough.
That's a super fair point. Like everybody says, out of the big off-road races we have in the States, like the Mint 400, Vegas to Reno, even Baja, Ultra 4 and King of the Hammers specifically. This event here is probably the best produced event for spectators.
100%.
It's gotten to the point now. We've talked about it on a previous podcast where a bunch of people in our group or in our camping group, we don't go out to the course anymore. We don't stand at the Jumbotron in town.
Yep.
We go and sit in our kitchen area with 2 TVs on, watching the race from the TVs, because the drone shots, the helicopter shots, the standalone shots are so amazing.
Yep.
That what Dave has put together here from a production standpoint,
it's phenomenal.
It's amazing. So,
and that's only going to get better.
Yeah.
Because as we build out this ecosystem of tracking cars better, the live updates online better. I mean, there's a lot of really cool stuff that is going to tie all these technologies together to bring spectators closer to
the racing experience.
Yep.
That's pretty freaking cool.
Yep.
Okay.
And so as we do that, we'll be able to have more cameras and more control over when each camera is going to cut to the live stream and all sorts of really cool stuff. We talked about a lot of things over the last year, and most of what is taking place in the current trajectory has been spoken about only since like early November.
Wow.
There's been a lot of big conversations.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. Okay. That's pretty cool. It's neat to kind of get an insight on the evolution of King of the Hammers. Cause I know after this year when Ultra 4 Mid-America dropped Ultra 4.
Yep.
There was a lot of questions about what's going to happen.
Yep.
And to know that Dave is not just taking it back over and running things, but he's really taking it back over and evolving it further.
100%
is pretty cool to hear.
Yep.
So, that's sweet. So that's kind of the mapping stuff here from Rugged Routes.
Yep.
Is there anything else you're kind of working on, focusing on the Rugged Routes that you want to share before we get into, I think, a really back into some of the Lowrance stuff?
Yeah. Well, with the tracking, I want to not just track race cars.
Okay.
Oh, the original idea with tracking on Lowrance was to just track my friends when I come riding in the desert.
Yep.
And then the more I thought about it, it's like, why only build something for only tracking your friends? It should be scalable and flexible and cover a large area and maybe be adopted for competition, maybe be adopted for search and rescue or something else.
Yeah.
You know, I think we live in a really cool world where technology is doing a lot of amazing things, but also because of this amazing technology that we have at our fingertips now, and maybe out here it's still at arm's length and sometimes, right? It's not quite at fingertips. There, but I feel like we're so eager to use it that we overcomplicate things. So sometimes we got to pull back the layers and be like, okay, yeah, we could do it by jumping through all these hoops, or we can take this other path that could have been implemented 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah. So yeah, there's different ways to do a lot of this stuff, but it, I really want to come up with something that's robust and simple.
Cool. That's sweet. Yeah. All right. So let's get back to Lowrance ecosystems, because I'm interested in that. I've never thought of a Lowrance as having an ecosystem. And by having an ecosystem, you're talking about having a bunch of different things that works with Lowrances.
Yeah. Expand it beyond just the GPS screen.
Exactly.
And I talked to so many people over the last decade. They're like, I know it can do a lot, but I don't know what that means.
Yeah. What does that mean to me? How am I going to use that? And how does that, change my racing program or my wheeling opportunities?
Exactly. So they have Wi-Fi, like you can hotspot like off your phone if you don't have cell service.
Okay.
You can Bluetooth to it. So let's say if you're driving and you get a text, you can respond to your text right on the screen, which is kind of cool. Like say you're all strapped in, 5-point harness and a helmet and everything. Mm-hmm. You can just, shoot off a message. But obviously out here, service is spotty. So it really depends on where you are. But it's just a feature. That's one little thing you can do.
Okay.
The tracking boats or race cars through the AIS features with a module that hasn't been invented yet. But, that's one of the big things, right? Tying into that side of it. Digital switching, we talked about that. Belt temp sensor, talked about it. Engine data.
Oh, so they can pull OBD2 data and different sensor. Or does it have to do separate sensors?
So doesn't have to do separate sensors.
Okay.
I've started tinkering with it, but I'm trying to wrap up some projects before I go too far down this other rabbit hole.
Okay.
But basically, plug in OBD2. And then plug in a NEMA 2000 on the other side. And then just like the belt temp sensor is an overlay.
Yeah.
You can bring in a bunch of other stuff, whatever's available on OBD2, bridge it over, and then you can use that as like a dash basically.
That'd be cool.
And then even doing multiple units. So like say your co-driver has like a 12-inch Lowrance on that side of the car, but you want like a 7-inch on the driver's side.
Okay.
You can do that, and it's all configurable. So you can do a gauge screen. You can do your chart.
Okay.
You can do split screen.
That's cool.
You hook up a backup camera.
Yeah.
You can do so many things.
Interesting. I didn't realize that there was that much different stuff.
All sorts.
Holy crap.
And they're linked together too. So like even with my maps on SD cards, if you've got them connected together, there's a yellow port on the back, which is actually just like a weather sealed Ethernet is really all it is. You connect the two units together. You pop in my map on one unit, and it gets
shares
shared
with the other one.
Yeah, so you get the satellite overlay and everything
on both screens. That's cool.
Yep. Even just doing split screen with multiple maps. Some people, like some of the competitors out here, they'll even do it where they'll run a split screen, and you can adjust the split. So you can do like maybe like a 70-30 split.
Okay.
And so the narrow side is
a super
like
zoomed in or zoomed out, whatever.
Exactly.
And then the other side's the other zoom in.
Yeah.
I did see that before we came down here, I was watching the trophy truck race on the live stream.
Yep.
And they had a bunch of in-car streams.
Yep.
And it was fun watching the cab of a trophy truck.
Yep.
And figuring out all the different things they're using and what they're doing. I was like, this truck has 2 to 3 Lowrance screens, 2 to 3 Holly Sniper screens. Like
there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on in these trophy truck cabs, and I didn't realize that all the Lowrances are essentially kind of all hooked together, and they're sharing data with each other.
They can be. They're not always done that way.
Okay,
but yeah, they definitely can be, and they should be. And I think even in that world, they don't realize that you can connect things together.
Interesting.
In that way, because I've seen trophy trucks with 2.1 antenna pucks on the roof. It's like, why?
Yeah.
You only need one. You just connect them all together and it all pulls from the same thing. So
interesting.
Yeah. So I've seen a lot of interesting setups and it just catches my eye. Even pulling into like the Pomona Offroad Expo a few months ago. Yeah. I was going in to set up the booth and saw these trucks rolling in and I'm like, he doesn't know.
He doesn't. Interesting.
Yeah.
There's a lot of amazing mechanical fabricators in the off-road world.
Yep.
There's not nearly as many nerdy people in the off-road world. And
there should be more. There really should be more. Yeah. And I try to address some of that with even just setting up a Lowrance from scratch and like on the YouTube channel. A lot of my customers, they're kind of like with technology. They're not up and all the latest and greatest stuff. Yeah. So when you put something new in front of them, they they need a little bit more direction.
Yeah, it's almost feature overload. They're like, you start telling them all about all the stuff it can do, and they get caught on A, B while you're over here on E, F, G, H, I.
Yeah, so I really got to slow it down. Yeah. But that's what's cool about my YouTube videos is I try to keep them like 5 or 7 minutes at a time.
Okay.
And I break it down really slow, and I kind of rehash it in the video. And I get calls all the time from people like, "Hey, I'm new to this, but I came across your videos." And I had questions. I solved a lot of, I answered a lot of those questions as a result of your video. And I just have a couple more. And it shortens the phone calls, but then they're also using that. They have access to this resource that they can play over and over and over again. Yeah. Not just audibly, but visually, which is a lot better than me running in circles all over the phone, Yeah. So it helps a lot of people. But it works out well. So the split screen stuff is really cool. And you can do a lot of split screen instruments, multiple GPS charts, and each of those panels that are for the GPS, they operate independently of each other. So you can have like one with a satellite overlay, one without, one zoomed in, one's not zoomed out.
Wow.
So it all has access to the same trail data and your waypoints and everything. But as far as your configuration, it's like having 2 GPSs.
And I'm just sitting here thinking Lowrances are just for breadcrumbs.
Yeah, right.
Shit. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, they do a lot. They do a lot.
That's cool. Well, you just came out with another really cool product that has, I don't think you had it. Did you have it last year? Were you doing prototyping on it last year?
So it's still technically in prototype.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'll give you a little backstory on it. I know we haven't even said what it is yet.
Yeah.
But it's a keypad, right? I don't know if you want to explain it because I've said it, but it.
I probably wouldn't do it justice. I'd probably be like, it's for breadcrumbs. So,
all right.
Yeah. What is it? Explain it to everybody.
Yeah. So a long time ago, I realized that there's a problem with the efficiency in pre-running for desert races.
Yep.
Right. So like they'll have to go really slow or stop to mark a hazard or some sort of note on a race course. And that significantly impacts the efficiency of what you can get done in the allotted time that you have for pre-running.
Yeah. When I think of the process of pre-running, you're trying to go through the race course to figure out hazards, figure out quick turns, medium turns, figure out G outs where those are, figure out, there's a cliff this way. You need to make sure you're going this way. And so the process of figuring that out to me is you're driving the course, but you are having to go slow because you're either, if you're by yourself, then you got to stop and write something down on a paper and be like, okay, needs to be here. Or your co-driver might be able to do it while you're going. But I mean, these courses are not smooth by any means.
Very challenging.
Very challenging to take notes on while you're driving. So like you said, stopping, writing down a note. And then later that night, after you have done a fourth 25% of the trail, the course, your co-driver or somebody else on the team inputs all those notes into your Lowrance or your tracking system, whatever you're using for your co-driver to help navigate.
So a lot of times that process is marking things temporarily in the Lowrance and then maybe a lot of guys will do like audio notes. So waypoint 1,
gotcha.
Like left or whatever it is, or rocks on right or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they go back, they import all those waypoints into the laptop and then they go back and edit them based on the audio. So they have to listen to all of their notes and manually put them in and then transfer back to the Lowrance with all their icons and notes. So instead of going through all of that, I built this interface for a macro keypad.
Okay.
And now you can program the commonly used notes and because a lot of different navigators or co-drivers, they take notes in their own unique way.
Yeah.
So they can customize how they want their notes done. They assign each one of those notes to a pre-programmed key on a keypad.
Okay.
And now they can drop notes at full race speed.
Wow.
And I've got 2 of them here.
Oh my God. So, okay.
Yeah.
So you can be going race speed through the race course. And it may take, like for King of the Hammers, 3-lap course out here today, it's going to take a lot of drivers 10 hours to do this.
Yeah. So
if you're doing it the old way, you're having to go really slow. So you can't get this done in one day. You can't drive the course. You got to drive the course over 3 or 4 days. So you're only getting 20 to 25% of the course at a time, having to put it all in. That's a week's worth of work.
It's a massive undertaking
that you can now get done in 10 hours. essentially.
Yeah.
It's from 40 hours down to 10 hours, if not more than 40 hours sometimes. Like,
and it depends on the course, right? Like a lot, even though these are 3 laps, you have the desert lap, and then the rocks for today, most of it is the same for laps 2 and 3, but there are
optional trails that you can take, or like you have to go on this one on one of the 2 laps. And
yep. So lap 2, it's like make a left here and take this trail, but then it merges back to the main trail. And then the lap 3, when you get to that same fork, you go right instead.
Gotcha.
But then the connecting trail is the same as what you did on lap 2.
Gotcha.
So it's, you basically, you make a lot of lefts on lap 2 and you make a lot of rights on lap 3.
Got it.
But when you look at it from the aerial view, like 90% of the course is
all the same area. Yeah.
So even for pre-running this, it's not quite as drastic as like 10 hours because, if you're up in that area, you can go run both of those options kind of in one shot and then link it back around.
Okay.
But the concept, exactly what you're saying is you can save a massive amount of time.
Wow. Okay. So how many, it's a macro keypad. The way I kind of like to think about it is, there was a trend going around at one point, kind of like this, the keypad on the Roadcaster here, where you can program these buttons to a different sound. And then people were making music by hitting the buttons on these keypads, right?
Yep.
And it could have a 16 key, so 4x4, or 10x10, have 100 keys on there, and all these different things that each button, each key is programmed to a different sound.
Yep.
So you're doing the same thing, but you can program each button to rocks on right, or hard right here, or hard left.
And you can select the icon as well. So any of the icons that are in the Lowrance, you can configure that icon with that race note, and it
automatically appears it on there.
Yep.
So can you have it set up? Because I know there's a couple of other things similar like that that you can use with computers for macro keypads, but the icons, you can have them show up on the buttons themselves.
I've wanted to do it that way. In fact, I stalled this project for a really long time, wanting to build something that does that. But the cost of those switches to do that is like through the roof.
Oh, geez. Okay.
And so I was just like, okay, I got to find another way to do this. And actually the implementation of how this is coming together now is like my 3rd or 4th version of trying to solve this problem.
Okay.
My original one was like this proof of concept. Like, yes, I can send custom waypoints over the wire to a Lowrance and it marks it. Okay. It was very crude. Then I built another device that was like more handheld, and went through a lot of iterations of how I was going to do this over the Ethernet connection.
Okay.
And then ended up scrapping that because there's only a limited amount of buttons, and it had a little mini Linux computer inside. It had to like boot up, and it was cumbersome. It worked, but it was too limiting because it only had like 7 buttons and everything was preset.
Okay.
And then that's when I showed it to some of the guys at the Herps, and talked to some other guys that I know that race, and they were just like, no, it's a great start, but the more I learned about the racing world, right? Because I'm not from the racing world. This has been a transition over quite a bit of time, where realizing how many variations and how different people do things so drastically. And some people may only need half a dozen buttons. Yeah. And other people want way more detail. They want way more buttons. They take way more notes. And it's just crazy how it can be so. There's a very, very large spectrum of how people do this. Okay. So with the current implementation, I have a small box that plugs into the NEMA 2000 CAN bus connection and just has a USB port on the front. Okay. And now when you program the keys in the macro keypad, there's just a specific, basically you have like brackets and an ID number for the icon, a comma, then like whatever you want the name to be. Okay. And then you close the brackets. And so it's that series of characters that just gets sent to that box that I built.
The box. Okay.
Yep. And that
all
box,
the buttons.
Yep. So the box gets all those key presses and turns it into the waypoint and shoots it off.
That's pretty cool.
That box is monitoring the location of the GPS live all the time. So as soon as it gets that key press, it marries the latest lat long from the GPS with that recent endpoint. Okay. Yep. And there's going to be some additional options that I'm going to be programming in too. Like, let's say if you're consistently missing your mark, because let's say you're just going really fast, and figure the average human delay is like 2 seconds. Like you see it and then you go to push it. You say it's It's more like
that would take me like 5 to 10 seconds bouncing around in a car. See an obstacle, be like, okay, I can't get the button.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So now imagine this. Now you can go in and you tell this thing, well, I'm always 5 seconds late. So you set it back 5 seconds.
Gotcha.
Because you figure if you're a trophy truck doing 100 plus, 5 seconds is like a massive, massive error.
Yeah.
Right? So you can back it up and this will keep track of where you've been in the last, let's say 30 seconds, and you can go back, and it just taps into the location that it had when you were actually there.
Yeah. So you have a couple guys out here using that now. How's their feedback been on it?
They love it.
Yeah.
They absolutely love it. Yeah. So one of the guys had it, his name's Sergio. He's been really cool to work with. He does a lot with the Gomez brothers.
Okay.
He had it down to the 500 in Mexico back in June.
Okay.
And talked to a lot of people down there. It was his first time using it. And he just like fell in love with it. Right?
Okay.
And he's out here now. He used it all this last week when they were doing pre-running for King of the Hammers. And he's like, dude, this thing is spot on. It's absolutely phenomenal.
Nice.
And he's loving it. And then I also have been working with Chris Ray.
Yep. And I saw him post on Facebook a couple different places about it. And I was like, hey, look what Steven's coming up with.
Yep. So Chris has been, as soon as I met up with Chris at the Pomona Offroad Expo late last year, showed it to him, explained it to him. And so he recently, I think this was the first time he actually got to program his own keypad and use it for its intended purpose, like start to finish.
Okay.
And when I saw him, he's like, I could take notes for this whole thing and be done with everything in like 4 hours.
Oh my God.
He's like, if I were to come out and pre-run and use this, I can have it dialed. He said at least 90% of his notes don't need any editing in post.
Wow.
So, and
that's so cool.
And I think Sergio is happy with however he's doing it. I haven't compared like how those two guys are doing it. I mean, Chris is more of a rock guy.
Yeah. And
Sergio does a lot in the desert, but he's also here at King of the Hammers. And they do obviously Gomez brothers. They do kind of everything.
Yeah, they do.
Right. So, great feedback. And there's a lot of people that have been hearing the rumblings about its existence, and there's a lot of people that want them. So where I am at now is having to basically rebuild the current approach because the chip shortage through COVID really screwed me up. So I've been reiterating the latest circuit board on new hardware, actually on the board. And then we can finally start producing them. So
nice.
I was actually going to be soldering together another prototype of it's called the Trailmark, the module itself.
Okay.
And that prototype, I got the new circuit board in. I was going to solder it up the Friday after our meeting with Dave Cole about building the map. So it's like, well,
that's on delay now.
We're going to have to wait till after Hammers and I'll get that done and we'll just, keep going on it. But I think it's going to be coming to the project itself is going to be coming to a close and finally make them available.
That's cool.
Without too much more time.
That's cool. I have other questions for you about production, but that's we're starting to get light on time here. I think this episode is more about stuff that you're doing rather than like, how do you run business options and business stuff and business decisions? So that's super cool. So it's called the Trailmark.
It's called the Trailmark.
Okay. Yep. From Rugged Routes.
Yep.
Okay, sweet. And then to find it, it's just on ruggedroutes.com.
Is listed on the homepage right now, but you can't buy it yet, but it is there. There's a little box where you can punch in your email address if you want to get notified when it does get released. So that's going to be a really good tool for anybody listening or anybody that's interested to just put your email on that list. And as soon as they come out, I'll reach out.
Cool.
And we'll make it happen. But one thing I do want to make note of is the scalability of it. Just really quick note on it, because you mentioned sometimes people are out pre-running by themselves.
Yeah.
Right. So because it's the magic happens in that box and there's multiple different types of macro keypad devices out there. You can go to a smaller keypad, or there's even a company called X Keys that has like a very simplistic approach where we can even probably put buttons in the steering wheel.
No shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you pre-program it, then you have a limited set of buttons in your steering wheel.
Yeah.
You can drive and drop notes at the same time. So
that's cool.
It's very adaptable to a wide range of uses for that. So it's just,
that's pretty cool.
I think it's going to go pretty well.
So. Nice. So so you can get that. You've got your maps
Yep, the maps are there.
Rugged routes. Okay.
Yeah, that is one thing I did want to mention. I know we're trying to wrap up. Is Lowrance for a long time, a long time ago, they were limited to 2 gigabyte SD cards. And then they broke through that threshold, and then the limit was 32 gigs.
Okay.
And now finally, in the last 6 months, the threshold has been lifted beyond 32 gigs. I don't know what the limit is now. They said they've tested to 256. But I put a 1 terabyte card in one recently, and it read. So that's opening up options to do more offline mapping for much larger areas.
Yeah.
As I will say, one complaint that I do get from my customers is just they want more. And I can't always just do more, because I do put a lot of work into my very area specific maps like Johnson Valley and Big Bear and Glamis and a handful of other places, very centralized around a specific OHV area. But the guys that cover a lot of ground that maybe don't need all the detail that I normally want to put into a product, but they also don't want a very basic topo map that covers the whole country. They want something in between, maybe something statewide. That is now becoming a possibility with these larger SD cards to still have satellite imagery and a lot of good data. And I'm also going to be rolling in ham repeaters and GMRS repeaters.
Oh, that's cool. Have like a repeater book built into it too.
I've been talking to the guy at Repeater Book for a couple of years.
No shit.
Yeah. So Repeater Book data will be brought over and implemented. Rad. So hoping to not just cater to the race guys and the UTV guys, but hopefully, especially with these integrations, be able to be adopted by guys that are doing some hardcore overlanding that they're not on, they're off the grid. I know with Starlink, it's changing some things, but with the amount of control and things that you can expand on, this is just one piece of a larger puzzle that you can then, like the 12-volt switching and all that. So it just opens up a lot of options I want to have the complete package. And so we're well on our way to doing that. So I may not be on my way to getting much sleep, but, but I'm on my way doing a lot of really cool stuff. And I'm really happy that, I've had a lot of irons in the fire for a long time, but things have a lot of momentum right now, and I'm just excited to keep it moving throughout the year.
That's pretty cool, dude. That's sweet. Thanks. Yeah, well, awesome. If people wanted to get a hold of you and ask you questions about rugged routes, rugged rocks, anything that you're doing, questions about the Pathfinder, how can they do that? Yeah,
so ruggedrocks.com is where all the Nissan stuff is out. Okay. Rugged Routes is where ruggedroutes.com is all the navigation related stuff. I've got Facebook, Instagram for both of them. They both have the same phone number to reach me at my desk.
Okay.
And I try to leverage email as much as possible, but I also understand that not all conversations can be had on a computer, right? So I love talking to people. I love talking about ideas and just solving problems.
Yeah, right.
I love solving problems. So if somebody's like, I had this idea and, this isn't working right, or, somebody needs to solve XYZ. Those are the types of things that, I stare at my marker board at 2:00 in the morning in my office, be like, I need to solve more problems. But yeah, definitely reach out. Cool. My desk number, 909-547-4651.
Cool.
Otherwise, check out the websites.
Sweet. I like it, man. If anybody out there has questions as well for us or feedback about the show, you can always do that. You guys know how to do that. If you don't, there's lots of episodes out there to figure out how to do that on. So we'll keep this one, just wrap it up here. Steven, thanks for coming on the podcast, man, making the time out of your busy day during 4400 day.
Yeah, it's been a busy week, but I'm glad we got to do this.
Yeah, we've been trying to do this for a while, so it's finally made it happen. Yeah. Well, cool, man. Any final words for everybody out there?
Just have fun and be safe out there. Especially here at King of the Hammers, there's a lot of people that come out and keep your head on a swivel.
Yeah, definitely. And with that, my friends, keep crawling.
I got one for you guys. Did you guys hear about the actor who broke his leg on stage? He's still in the cast.